April 18th, 1991. That's the day I drew my first breath. That's the day I was born. I like to think it was a great day. I hope my parents feel the same way. I was a really positive kid, and I'm sorry that this photo doesn't really demonstrate that too much. I was a little excessive with the arrows, apparently a little center of attention much. But I was a very, very social child, energetic. I just didn't stop. And when I graduated high school, all of my teachers said, Hélène, what do you want to do? And I said, well, with all this energy I have, I want to be the next Steven Spielberg. But before I do that, before I go into film, I want to travel. And so I had this opportunity to go to Barcelona and study Spanish and dance. And when I was in Spain, sorry, forgot that there was one more, I had a really great time. I was gallivanting about, jumping pictures all over the place, rented a motorcycle, had some great sangria and food and tapas, and I loved my experience there. But I felt more and more short of breath when I was there. And when I came home from that trip, I'd caught the travel bug. I was also aware that I was very out of shape, and I said, what's a better way to get in shape than to pack a 50-pound backpack and backpack the UK? So I booked a ticket to London. And my friend was living in Inverness at the time, and I said, what a great destination. And so I flew into London with the hopes of backpacking all the way up to Inverness. But when I got to Oxford, I was pretty short of breath. See, I'd been diagnosed with asthma at the age of 16. And so when I was feeling more and more short of breath, I blamed it on the asthma. And when I was in England, for the first time in my life, I thought this is a good time to be compliant. Maybe I should take those puffers. And so I started taking my puffers, thinking it would enable me to walk better and backpack easily, but actually, it didn't help at all. So, in Oxford, I bought a train ticket. And on my way up, all the way to Newcastle, in the train, I was sitting beside a gentleman, very nice man, but I kept coughing. Wee lassie, you've got a cough, eh? Yeah, I do. Sorry, I'm a little Canadian, sorry, eh? You know, are you all right? Yeah, I just have asthma. Oh, that's not asthma. You need to get a chest x-ray. Oh, okay. Anyways, we parted ways, and I finally met up with my friend in Inverness. And the first thing she said when she saw me was, Hélène, you've lost so much weight. You look great, but you've lost a lot of weight, and you seem like you're short of breath. Are you okay? And I said, yeah, my asthma's been acting up. These puffers aren't helping. And I told her about the weird Scotchman who was like, you need a chest x-ray. And she was like, yeah, maybe you should go see your doctor. So when I got home from that trip, I didn't go see a doctor. It took me quite some time to realize that maybe this respiratory thing that I had was more than just asthma. You know, I'd go to pick up a shirt off the floor, and I would feel faint. And at the age of 20, I should have been able to do so much more. So I went to see my family doctor, and I asked her for a chest x-ray. And this is what the lungs of a 20-year-old woman should look like. And this is what mine looked like. She called me a couple days later saying, Hélène, your lungs have collapsed. And I said, my lungs collapsed? Oh, I know why. No, you don't understand. So I got admitted to the hospital. I didn't want to go. I had plans. I was supposed to go to Niagara Falls. You know, I was supposed to do all these things. And then instead of doing that, I ended up in hospital for about 2 weeks. We didn't know what it was. We just knew it had something to do with bad lungs. And so my friend, one specifically, made me these lungs and was like, I know your lungs aren't the best, but we're here for you no matter what. And it was great to have that support. And in time, as weeks passed, the fear of the unknown, not knowing what it was, I got a call and they said, you know what, we know what it is. you have this rare lung disease called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know how to spell idiopathic. I didn't even know what it meant. Idiopathic means unknown, which is the irony of that. And pulmonary fibrosis, by the time they discovered it, 84% of my lungs had been damaged. And this damage was irreversible. And the only way to treat it was with a double lung transplant. So you can imagine that my life got flipped, turned upside down, Prince of Bel-Air style. I had just been dancing in Barcelona, backpacking England, and you're telling me that I need to put my life on pause and wait for a double lung transplant? I took a couple steps back and I said, you know what? I have taken my life and my ability to breathe, my ability to do everything for granted. I'm going to make the best out of this experience because I can't change my lungs. This disease, it's pretty aggressive. They're only going to get worse. But I can be positive about it. And so a way for me to be positive was to make fun of the fact that I had to really slow down. And I had a walker. And you know, my family was really great with this stuff, and my nurses as well. And we made all these jokes like, oh, we'll be part of a band. You know, we'll call each other Air Supply and, you know, air guitar. And I always wanted a dog. And carrying oxygen around, my father was like, well, Hélène, you finally get to walk something. Oh, you're really funny. They called me YouTube. If I was a rapper, my name would be Lil Weezy. And, you know, I had as much fun as I could with this thing. And at the same time, we tried to raise awareness for organ and tissue donation, which is something I never thought would affect me. I knew it was important, but I didn't think anything of it. We don't perform transplants, lung transplants specifically here in Ottawa, and the closest place for me to go was Toronto. And so my mother moved with me to Toronto, and my father stayed here with my siblings. It was hard, but I was all about the experiences. So I said, Mom, you know what? I'll just get a job at Starbucks with my oxygen, and it'll be okay. And my mom, being a nurse, understood that that would not work out. And I was like, you know what? Then they'll put the lungs in me. I'll be back home in no time. It'll all be good. But in time, as the disease progressed, my ability to do things became less and less, well, ability to do things got smaller and smaller. And my reserve got smaller as well. And one of the things I told myself is I said, you know what? I don't want this disease to affect what I can do. I don't want it to define me. I am going to define it. And so when I lived in Toronto with my mother, I said, you know what, Mom, one of the things that I want to do for you is just make you a cup of coffee every morning. If that's something that's really simple, I'd like to do that for you. And there's this one morning when I woke up, I got out of bed. My mom naturally, Hélène, put your oxygen on. I'd put the oxygen on. And I walked about 4 or 5 steps, and I realized that it was harder to do it. The day before, I could do it with ease, but that morning it was harder. And I couldn't even make her a cup of coffee. And I remember saying, Mom, I don't think I'll ever make you a cup of coffee again unless I have a lung transplant. The disease progressed to a point where the lungs not only were damaged, 94% of them, the entire lungs are damaged, so I had a 6% lung function, but what was left of them wasn't doing the function that they should have been doing. And so I ended up needing to be admitted to the hospital. And I woke up in the middle of the night because I couldn't breathe on this one day, the longest day of my life. I'll never forget it. April 5th, 2012. Breathing felt different, and I knew I didn't have much time left unless I were to receive this second wind. And so I said, you know what? With what little breath I have left, I want those who I love to know that I love them, and I want to tell them goodbye. They don't need to know I'm saying goodbye, but I just want to let them know that I've been thinking of them, and I will be until I draw my last breath. And And so I started texting. I called a couple people, but when calling got too difficult, I came back to texting. And you know, at 6:30 in the morning, a nurse came into my room that day and said, "Hélène, you're already awake?" "Yes, I have been for quite some time." "Good news. We may have a pair of lungs for you, a suitable match. I'll be back at around 2 to let you know." And I had these mixed emotions. I was really excited. Wow, this could be it. But I had also experienced a false alarm before where I had been called into the hospital, waited about 9 hours to hear, "We're sorry. It wasn't suitable." Life is full of false alarms. And so you can see that at this point, I knew that if I was to get these lungs, I would be okay, but if I wasn't, I didn't have any time left. 2 o'clock rolled around, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, no news. The nurse came in at around 5 and said, "Hey, we still don't know yet. We'll be back soon." And I'm a very social person. I mean, we established that with the Energizer bunnies. I should have asked some of my teachers from high school to come up here and back me up, but I do not stop talking. And that day when I was in the hospital, people came in to visit, and I couldn't even spend more than 2 minutes with them because it was so hard. So around 6 o'clock rolls around, still no news. 7, 8, 9, breathing is harder. Getting up to go to the bathroom wasn't an option. It was so difficult. No news. 9 o'clock, a nurse comes in and says, "Hey, we still don't know yet." And at around 11:30, this tall man walked into my room. He said, "Hélène, we have a pair of lungs for you. It's a suitable match. Do you want them?" And then I had a lung transplant. And all the while, we had this organ donation campaign that was going on. And I had this idea in my mind that when I'd receive that second chance, I would wake up and breathing would be so easy. And a couple days later, I woke up, April 8th. I saw my sister there, and I started to cry. I was crying because I realized, wow, this happened. And right when I wanted to get out of bed, I realized I can't get out of bed. I had been intubated, so I had a ventilator to help me breathe because I was in such bad shape and the lungs weren't working on their own. So I had help with breathing. And my heart wasn't working as well, so I was placed on this machine that was also acting as my heart. And I was on all these loopy meds to keep me calm from pulling the tube out. And I remember waking up thinking, okay, so this happened, but this feels terrible. I can't speak. I can't walk. I can't drink. This is so hard. Life with those bad lungs didn't seem so bad. And I know it sounds terrible to say that, but that's really how I was feeling at the time. I had this idea that when this happens, life will be better. And I think all of us can relate to that. We say, when I am fill in the blank, life will be so much better. And I mean, in time, as my body got stronger and stronger and the lungs got stronger, I was able to do things on my own. Simple things like tying my own shoes, brushing my teeth, and I could finally make my mom a cup of coffee. And you know what? So many of you guys can relate to how sometimes when we feel so low, it's hard for us to appreciate the simple things in life. And the message is always appreciate what you have. Don't take anything for granted. But when you're having a hard time, when you're struggling, it is easy to forget that we should appreciate what we have. And my message for you is that those low points in life, maybe, you know what? Maybe, am I crazy to say that those low moments, they make us better, they make us stronger, they fix us, and they enable us to appreciate breath. Thank you.